let me just get this straight, right? Tom Brady posted he's retiring, but he did not acknowledge Patriots fans or the Patriots at all, but then acknowledged the Patriots post and thank you to Tom Brady. The post where they thanked Tom Brady, he acknowledged that. It's kind of a goat move. Kind of a goat move. Hey, welcome back to Odd Man Sports. I'm your host, Brandon Perna. I'm also the host of That's Good Sports, which I will not thank. So take a minute to subscribe to both if you haven't already. On today's show, I'll give you some long shots, some can't miss bets for the game we've all been waiting for. I'll reveal which fictional Joe Burrow most resembles, and I'll lay out the Tom Brady angle no one is talking about, which is how I think he should have handled the end of his career. Dinks and Dunks. Well, the matchup is set, and it's Bengals versus Rams in the Super Bowl. This year's game is expected to attract roughly 100 million viewers. And with sports betting now legal in much of the country, it's estimated that a record $6.8 billion will be wagered on the Super Bowl. Hey guys, quick note on this week's episode, and I won't bore you with all of the legal back and forth that led to this, but after I recorded this episode, the game day lawyers informed me that we don't technically have the rights to the term Super Bowl, which is apparently a term limited to the NFL and its affiliated partners. But rather than re-recording the entire episode, I've decided that the most sensible thing to do is to just dub over it. So please excuse the awkwardness, and back to the show. A record $6.8 billion will be wagered on Roger Goodell's penis, which is crazy because Roger Goodell's penis almost always disappoints. A quick reminder that if you're gonna bet the game, head over to thegameday.com for all of the best odds and payouts, and make sure to sign up at the game day using the link below for your chance to win a 65-inch Omni Series 4K smart TV, as well as other prizes. Now, the sentimental pick for the game appears to be the Bengals, who at last look were 3.5-point underdogs. But I'm riding with the favorites. Partly because I'd like to see Matthew Stafford and Aaron Donald get rings, and Von Miller get a second. And partly because I feel a kinship with the Rams, because I too have an awkward history with ED. Another reason I'm pulling for LA, Odell Beckham. And not because I think he should be rewarded for enlisting Michael Stipe to help him force his way out of Cleveland, but remember when Odell joined LSU's 2019 championship celebration in the locker room?
Take a look at this video. It was posted on Twitter, and it shows Beckham confronting and allegedly spanking a police officer.
He wasn't even on the team! Now, just imagine what Odell's liable to do with a cop's butt if his team wins it all. Speaking of wide receivers, one long shot prop bet I recommend: T. Higgins to score 4 or more touchdowns against the Rams. And while that may seem like a lofty number for a guy who has 6 tutties all season, here's why I think it might happen. Because Higgins is hoping to switch his jersey number next season to the number 5 that he wore at Clemson. And while appearing on the Pro Football Focus Fantasy podcast before the season, Higgins made this deal with fans who had already shelled out money for his number 85 jersey.
To the fans out there, if I score 10 or more touchdowns this season, I have to go back to 5.
Now, I don't want to tell T. Higgins how to conduct his business, but if you're a Bengals receiver trying to make a name for yourself, maybe, just maybe, don't take the number of the greatest Bengals receiver of all time, especially if that all-time receiver literally changed his name to the Spanish translation of said number. This would be like if Michael Jordan changed his name to Mike Dos Tres, and Kobe White, upon being drafted by the Bulls, was like, I got this. Now, betting on Goodell's penis size is one of the great American pastimes, partly because everyone can get involved, from the sharps to the casual fans who make their picks based on things like which uniforms they prefer or which mascot would win in a fight. For some insights into a theoretical Ram versus Bengal Tiger fight, here's a wild old ESPN clip featuring a Ringling Brothers performer named Jenny Vidbell helping break down a mascot battle between UNC and Memphis.
We've got a Tigers-Rams matchup here in our final. Who's going to win if they fought in nature?
Okay, well, I'm definitely going to go with the Rams because they're so quick and so agile, and they're great balancing, and yeah, I have to go with the Rams.
I can't believe I'm going to say seriously, but seriously, Jenny?
Seriously, Jenny, you really think a Ram would defeat a Tiger? You're frankly out of your goddamn mind, and furthermore, it's exactly this kind of underestimation of these ferocious big cats that has been putting tiger trainers around the world in serious danger. A Ram didn't attack Siegfried, or was it Roy? I'm still not totally sure. A Ram didn't bite this lady's arm off, and if you really think a Ram would beat a tiger in a fight, you probably need to go back to clown college. Seriously, Jenny. Speaking of big cats, Big Cat, the Barstool host, posted a text exchange with George Kittle in which the Niners tight end promised him a birthday dab if he found the end zone against the Rams. And sure enough,
Kittle, touchdown 49ers!
Now, I don't like to brag, so I wasn't going to post this, but before the Chiefs game, Travis Kelce slid into my DMs and said he'd acknowledge me if he found the end zone. And sure enough,
Finds freedom, and in the end zone, he finds Kelce!
thanks, Travis. Now, Tuesday marked the start of Black History Month. And this year, the celebration holds special significance in the NFL because this is the 100th anniversary of the league's first African-American head coach, Fritz Pollard, who was hired by the Akron Pros in 1922. And to think of all the progress the NFL has made since then, going from only one black head coach back in 1922 to today, a century later, where we have exactly one black head coach in the NFL. Now, the Broncos introduced their new head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, on Sunday, and General Manager George Paton provided some opening remarks about the former Green Bay offensive coordinator before the two shared an embrace that lasted so long, I considered hosting a YouTube watch-along. Now, as for Broncos fans hoping Hackett will lead Aaron Rodgers to the Broncos so he might do for Denver what Brady did for Tampa, one NFL coach said, "Not so fast." Said the anonymous coach to The Athletic, Rodgers wants to talk about vaccine mandates and cancel culture, while Brady talks about all ball. Rodgers loves the standing invite on the AJ Hawk show. To me, Rodgers doesn't show the focus that it really takes to win the multiple championships. To which I'd say, the AJ Hawk show? As much as I enjoy AJ's work as co-host, I would argue it's the Pat McAfee show. For a reason. Because if it were the AJ Hawk show, it would probably look something like this. And finally, Cincinnati Public Schools announced kids will be given the day off after next Sunday's game, which I was in favor of, at least until I noticed that Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati hometown hero they'd be honoring, had the word Cincinnati misspelled in his own Instagram bio. Sorry, everyone, back to school. Back to school, you got work to do. Money talks. One of the greatest, not to mention handsomest, to ever lace him up is calling it a career. And it may surprise some people to hear me say this, but it truly was a joy to watch you compete, Henrik Lundqvist. Also, Tom Brady retired. which, despite his age, is still somewhat surprising, because Tom can clearly still play. After all, he led the league in passing yards this last year. But, on the other hand, Giselle has other plans for them, which she laid out to Charlie Rose back in 2017.
Are you trying to get him to retire?
I don't really think it's a healthy thing for your body to go through that kind of aggression like all the time. And I'm planning on having him be healthy and do a lot of fun things when we're like 100.
I actually agree with her, because risking his health for the next 50 years for a chance at an 8th ring seemed especially silly and short-sighted. And also, credit to Giselle for not asking Charlie Rose where his pants were. But here's the little secret, which Tom of course knows. They tell you retirement is all fresh powder and island greens. But it's not. Just ask Rams safety Eric Weddle, a former defensive captain who recently jumped at the chance to retire from his post-football gig, running the Weddle taxi service for all our kids' sports. As recently as this week, Tom reiterated his desire to still be the man in the arena, and his decision to hang him up turns him into something that's way less fun. The man in the Acura, endlessly scrolling through his phone like the rest of us, waiting for soccer practice to end. So what would I have done if it were me? What every other red-blooded male does right before settling down in a long committed marriage. One last guys trip. That's right, call up your old buddies for one last blowout in Vegas. But instead of a weekend of craps and skirt chasing at the Borgata, Tom should have signed up for one final season with Josh McDaniels and the Raiders. And if Derek Carr goes down at any point next season, I absolutely expect Tom to retire from his retirement for one last dance. If money and strippers can't lure him there, oh, Hunter Renfrow can. Hunter Renfrow can. Odd man out. In leading his team to the big game, Joe Burrow has elevated himself to the ranks of the great young QBs alongside Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Lamar Jackson, and yet no one knows what the hell to call this guy. After all, Joe Burrow sounds like a QB who was beaten out for the Ohio State job by Dwayne Haskins and never heard from again, which is partly true. But now that he's made a name for himself, Joe Burrow desperately needs us, the fans, to help him come up with a new nickname to take his image to the next level, much like Broadway Joe did during a similarly improbable run in 1969. And now I've seen people on Twitter referring to him as Joe Burrow because he's cold as ice, which works in print, but sure sounds like a guy trying to say Joe Burrow with a mouthful of peanut butter. Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow. You can't do it. It sticks. You can't make the right sound. Joe Exotic has gotten some traction as a nod to his Tiger King status, which is not bad. But does anything about this interior decorating suggest exotic? Burrow's everyman image actually lends itself to Joe Sixpack. But unfortunately, I think this Bengals fan has dibs on that one. Joe Cool? That's also taken. Though considering how much he's done to make smoking look cool again for kids, Joe Camel isn't terrible. Plus, he did get the Bengals over the hump. The fictional character Burrow resembles most? Not Kevin McAllister. Joe Kane from The Program, whose most famous line you could absolutely imagine coming out of Burrow's mouth.
Motion, tailback slant. Let's put the women and children to bed and go looking for fucking dinner, all right?
The reality is, you don't find a nickname finds you. And if the Bengals beat the Rams, we'll all be calling him something better anyways. Joe Burrow, Goodell's penis champion. All right, that's it for today. Comment below on your best bet for the game so we can all spread the wealth. Talk to you guys next week. Odd Man Sports.
It's in the game.